Yep. Okay. Go!
Will you hand me my scream box?
Now go.
Bouchard and Schreiber versus Harris matter. So this is number 24-400. All right, Mr. Drury for the petitioners.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to call Andre Bouchard as a witness, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bouchard. Mr. Drury will ask you some questions. Go ahead, Mr. Drury.
Thank you. Mr. Bouchard, do you know the respondent in this matter?
Yes, he lives a block and a half away from us on Division Street for the last around 4 years.
And have you measured in any way the distance between your home and his home?
Yes, it is 545 feet according to Google Maps.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like you to turn your attention to October 6th. On that day, did you happen to come into contact with the respondent?
Yes, sir. I was bicycling with my 8-year-old daughter, Calista Bouchard. We'd just taken her training wheels off. We were taking a bicycle ride around the neighborhood. And we were proceeding southbound, nearing the corner of Fern and 17th, about 2 blocks away from our home, maybe 3. And we noticed Mr. Harris pass us on the in the incoming lane of traffic in his SUV. We thought no more of it. We continued along 1 more block. And as we were entering the intersection for 17th and Division, I saw Mr. Harris in his SUV, the same one, proceeding at a high rate of speed. In the span that we went 1 block, he had gone 7. He circled a 7-block area to come at us in his SUV. He was honking his horn loudly, or as a horn goes, sounded loud. I yelled for my daughter to get off the street. Mr. Harris, about 1.5 years ago, threatened to run my kids over in his vehicle in a separate incident. She ramped up on the side. I had stopped on my side of the street, and he passed me, and I was stopped on my bicycle on my side of the street, so close that I could feel the wind off of his vehicle, all while honking his horn. I was very angry at that point in time and yelled, "F you, man," because this is just the latest in dozens of incidents that he has chosen to go out of his way and harass me and my kids and my wife. And and then we called the police. I walked my bike onto the sidewalk. I walked with my daughter home, and we called the police and we filed an incident.
Thank you. And that day, did police come into contact, as far as you're aware, with the respondent?
Yes, sir. The police officer asked if it would be helpful for them to go to Mr. Harris's house and ask him to stop his behavior. I had asked Mr. Harris many times in the past to stop, to leave us alone. And I said, I don't know. I told the officer that I didn't know. It may escalate things. It may not, that I would rely on the officer's judgment. The officer, I think, did visit Mr. Harris later that afternoon and asked him to cease his behavior of stalking, harassment, and threats.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned he came so close during that incident that you could feel the wind off the car. Yeah. Is it possible that, he's just driving fast and that incident had nothing to do with you, or did it appear that he was directing this activity towards you?
So the only way to have circled around to us was to go 3 blocks, for him to go 3 blocks up 14th Avenue, turn right, drive another block down 14th, take another right, drive 3 blocks south. If he wanted to turn around his vehicles for any reason, there was the alley that the HOA owns in behind his house that he could turned around, and he could have saved time in it. So there's no logical reason why he would have been around the block again. It wouldn't save him time or anything like that. So I can see no reason why he would have just been driving 7 blocks out of his way for really any reason.
Was there any obstructions in the road that forced him to come so close to you?
No, there were no cars parked nearby. My daughter was on the sidewalk around the time that she ramped up on the sidewalk. She's 8. We just took the training wheels off her bike.
You also, in the petition, mentioned an incident that occurred on, I think, the next day. Can you describe that incident just briefly?
Yes, sir. So I was in, there's a empty space in between the Division and Fern. I was playing ball with my dog on a long leash, and Mr. Andy was driving, turned in and was driving northbound in the alley adjacent to that. It's an alley that's owned by the homeowners association. And he rolled down his window, slowed down, glared at me, and said, "Fucking punk," loudly at me, and then drove off.
Was that the end of that incident?
I called the police again afterwards.
You mentioned in your early testimony that this type of activity on the roads has happened other times. Over the last year or year and a half, how many times would you say you've had similar incidents like this with the respondent?
There have been 6 incidents since last March. I would think probably about a dozen in the last year and a half. We haven't called the police for all of them, but rest assured that I would rather be doing other things with my time than calling the police on a neighbor. My mother passed away on October 16th, and she was in hospice for weeks before that. This was not a distraction that I wanted in my life. I would have rather lived and let live.
And as far as how these incidences have impacted you, what has, if any, been the impact for you and your family?
We've changed how we don't walk in our neighborhood nearly as much anymore. We used to do family walks together, me and my wife and our 2 children and our dogs. We don't walk down his block of Division. So we go considerably out of our way to get home every day. And recently we bought a mobile camera that we can wear, and we don't leave the home since this last set of incidents without that and on, because we are genuinely afraid that he's going to try to run one of us over or play chicken with a 2-ton SUV with us. We haven't gone out. But my daughter's wanted to go out on her bicycle, but she's been too afraid to. Yeah, it's changed our patterns of moving. It's changed the way that we, enjoy our neighborhood. And yeah, it's just laid a cloud of fear over our lives.
Thank you. And Your Honor, if I could just take some brief testimony from Ms. Schreiber as well.
Sure. All right, Ms. Schreiber, Mr. Drury's going to ask you some questions.
Ms. Schreiber, you've had the opportunity to hear Mr. Bouchard's testimony. Have you had recent similar type incidences with the respondent, Mr. Harris?
Yeah, I mean, after the October 6th and 7th, I went out on my weekend. It was Indigenous Peoples Day and the day before that. And both times Mr. Harris was circling the block and I was walking the dog and he pulled up and he started to stare at me while he walked while the car drove and I walked till I got out my phone and then he went away. I mean, I've had countless experiences where we've been walking down sorry. He followed me down the block one day when I was walking my dog and I turned right onto, I always get the streets messed up, but his street is Division, whatever the one is there, 15th, I think.
14th.
15th.
Okay, 15th.
And I turned right on 15th and he followed me down the block and he said, he told me to ask me what was up with my husband. And then he told me that he was watching us and that I'd better watch out. And I just was walking my dog.
Okay.
I mean, on an incident where we didn't call the police, he sat in the alley while my kids were out this summer and he stared at us like from the alley. I had to bring the kids inside.
This incident where you're walking the dog, I mean, you mentioned his vehicle. Is the vehicle just driving by you, or
No, it's slowing down.
is it
The
keeping?
vehicle keeping pace with me walking my dog till I get out my phone to try to record it. That's why we got the GoPro, because all of this is I don't have time to pick up my phone, hit in my passcode and like hit record with like my dog on the leash.
You mentioned a GoPro. Why?
It's a portable camera that we have it on a lanyard and you can hit play, like you can record as you leave the house. So it just records around my neck.
Did you purchase that regarding these incidences, or is it just a?
Yeah, we purchased it after the Indigenous, like the day that weekend, the Indigenous Peoples Day, because after the police came to Mr. Harris's house on October 6th, he filed a court order that an anti-harassment suit on us, and it was false and it threatened my kids with the system. I mean, it was dismissed in the court, but after that, we realized that the ante was raised and we needed to protect ourselves, at least with video footage.
And that's, I guess, my point. Did you buy the GoPro because of Mr.
Yes.
Harris' behavior, or was it just something you bought?
No, we bought it specifically so for Mr. Harris's behavior.
And this type of behavior where he's slowing down and keeping pace with you, staring at you, how many times has that happened? More than one time?
Yeah. We don't call the police every time for that. It happens on a regular basis when I mean, these incidents happen in clusters, and we avoid him to the best of our capability. I have to walk the dog. I sometimes like to take my kids out on walks. We try to avoid it. But yeah, it happens nearly every time that he's out in our vehicle and we're walking. Either it's stopping and staring and leering, or it's speeding up. On the October 6th incident, he had passed me and my son walking our dog, blaring his horn, like going really fast down. I mean, every time we see him in the vehicle, there's something that happens.
When he's engaged in this, is it possible, in your experience, in the moment, that there's another reason? For example,
No.
he's slowing down for,
No.
street crossers, or does it appear to be directed at you?
It's 1000% directed at us.
And the same question I asked Mr. Bouchard, how has this activity by Mr. Harris impacted you?
I mean, beyond the fact that my kids are terrified and I don't let them out the front of my house. We never drive past his house. We drive blocks out of our way because, like Andre said, the neighborhood's in a loop. So it's a closed system. You have to drive around. We drive around one way or the other. We drive out of our way. We don't walk. I never walk the dog past his house. I always go down the alley. I've had to tell the babysitter to not let the kids outside when I've been stared at and leered at when he's outside stalking the neighborhood. The kids don't get to go outside. They're 8 and 6.
And you filed, as part of your petition, a declaration of Kim Newland. Can you just briefly tell us who that is?
That's our neighbor, and that's our neighbor 2 doors down.
Okay. So she's also in the neighborhood there.
Yes.
Okay. And I also note that you filed various incident reports and police reports regarding some of these incidents.
We did that because in 2023, after he threatened to kill my kids twice with his car, the judge dismissed our case and said that we needed to provide more evidence. And so one of the ways they said to do that was to create incident reports because they couldn't. And in that incident, that was after the incident that one of them where Mr. Harris got out of his car and was screaming at my husband. And he said he wouldn't stop his car if he saw my kids in the street. And then he circled the block again that time to tell us the same thing. And that's when we filed our initial.
After that incident way back then, do you feel that a court order that this, if the court were to just tell Mr. Harris to stop this, but no court order, do you feel like that would improve your situation at all?
I mean, the court order is what we have on our side to be able to protect us in the event of this has been escalating since the day that he stood naked in front of his window my first day that we moved into the neighborhood and yelled at me for my dog. I mean, this is the only lever that we have. He almost just hit my husband with his car. The next time he's going to hit my husband with his car, my husband's going to go to the ER and they're going to say, why didn't you get a protection order? Or he's going to go up next to one of my kids and my kids are going to make a bad decision because they don't behave like adults. I mean, it's going to escalate, and this is the only lever we have. And we will still walk with a GoPro. That won't stop. I don't feel safe walking around the neighborhood, but this is the only thing we have in the system to support us.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. I think that's all I have, Your Honor, with the petitioners.
All right. Anybody else that you want me to hear from, or shall I hear from Mr. Harris?
I don't have any other witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Mr. Harris, let me hear your side of it.
Well, Your Honor, when I hear them say this, of course, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make them feel comfortable. But there is another side of the story. I've owned my house for 20 years and never had any problems with to this extent. As far as when I got this court appointment, I went and spoke to a couple of the neighbors to see, what was going on. And I'm finding out they were asking for a petition against my driving like 3 and 4 years ago, when some of the people entering the neighborhood, their neighbors directly beside them, I don't like to try to stick to the facts, but, they said I turned on their water one summer and just really making me into someone that we're pretty busy. We have to drive past their house because 2 doors past their house, I submitted a video. When you go two doors past is my entrance to get behind the property. There's been a couple times where she was leering at me. And when I turned, I was in the Marine Corps, I noticed my surroundings, and me and my wife actually thought they were really weird. But they're so worried about my criminal history from 20 years ago as they submitted it. Means nothing. I don't have anything against kids. They've definitely upped the ante into threats that I don't even speak to these people, and I definitely ignore them. There's so much here. I knew he had driven. I submitted it. He's bashing me on my drive, and I go down the street and I look at the speedometer. If I have a brand new car, a brand new diesel truck that drive down there 25 mile an hour to get to my property, just coming home from the dealership, he would have some antics. And then they're talking about another truck in what they submitted, spinning tire. Diesel trucks aren't really spinning tire. This Land Rover, I was selling it for a friend. I had it one day and I was selling it. And I went around the neighborhood. I have a couple witnesses. I didn't even speak to him. We went around the neighborhood once and came to the stop sign. We came to the stop sign. He came in front of the car and said, "Fuck you, man." And to be honest, we laughed because there was a guy jumping in front of the car, acting dramatic and everything else. I regret even laughing. We drove away. Wasn't close to him. I even brought the witness in that was in the car. You know, me, my wife, and well, most of the neighborhood know. And the craziest thing is, this is what's unsettling for me. You know, I'm a lot into safety at work. So when I look at the neighborhood, I had talked with the HOA, which is totally dormant, but there's all these blind corners in these little alleys. So I actually was the one that got the signs in that said wrong way when you enter. That way you wouldn't drive straight in. The end of the street, they're doing like 40 down the street. It's 25. So I went and called the city because a kid played in the corner. This was like 8-9 years ago, and put the stop sign in. So what I'm getting at is you can't appease these people by driving 25. I drove like 12 mile an hour in a Nissan Leaf, and no one wants to write anything against them because they're definitely different. But they always have their kids. 4 years ago when they moved in, their kids were so far away. Even my wife had said, you know, not good parenting having these little kids so far away. So when I would drive by them in my dark diesel, they would look at me like I was like, I felt so weird. It was just the look. And you're just driving like 8 miles an hour trying to get around the turn. So now I see, and it was like 3 years ago because their neighbors started growing their grass green. We would talk about the lawn. I went over there after I had seen them at the roundabout in my wife's car, and I knocked on the door, and I seen the guy, Andre. He walked in the back door, went out the front. And just a smaller kid, he's like, "We're going to go for a walk, but there's a bad man on the street." They're so worried about my criminal history 20 years before. It has encompassed them. So I know this to be true. Many people on the street know this to be true. But the last thing I would like to do is to come in here and say, I have nothing about kids. Anything, I mean, in my life, having anything against the kid is the worst thing ever. So just hearing that doesn't make me, you know, and that's why when I talk about harassment, when I look at all the I call them nuisance calls, you know, the glaring, the sneering, all this other stuff, it's like, it just you got to take a couple deep breaths. I mean, just to see that I mean, I'm in my 50s. I have a nice property. I take care of my place. And then I even did a volunteer group because there was no HOA where we painted the curbs that were coming up from the street was buckled there as a sidewalk. So it's just like, even the guy that did the volunteer work, and I had to do printouts, hand them out. We did this like 4 years in a row right before they came. But it's just, you know, they're in the way of the road once. And I said one time, you know, you could keep your kids out of the street. They're impeding the road. But of course I'd stop for a child running out, but they didn't even look. That was a couple of years ago. But, and then you know, it's not that they have to be perfect, but when I look at the submission of the only declaration, they changed the date. If you look at the police report, they changed the date to get a little closer. And then out of the blue, Andre's trying to run to get on the board, which HOAs are known for being harassing if you wanted to be. So I was like, there's nothing going on except for that one incident where I drove. You can't even drive the car around the neighborhood. But, you know, if they have witnesses, I have a witness that I brought that was in the car. I submitted and then my wife, she's the one who wrote that there were bad parents because we see the kids just everywhere. And, you know, even when I knew they were doing or you drive down the street and there is Tracy holding the dog back from jumping out in the street because he's not the most disciplined dog. I don't have a disciplined dog either. I carry him around because I worry about him. But it's just the point is, when I pulled up, from now on out, now that I know that they're in such fear of their lives, which I don't believe, I think that this will never end. That's people's comments that'll never end. But I wouldn't even look or laugh because they really want you to pay for saying you could keep your kids out of the street. They've blown it out of proportion. And the accident that he had, he was going so fast in the alley across the street. He beat me to a pulp on my drive. And when you look at the incident report, he totaled out 2 cars in the shortest alley. It says injury to the 2 kids, 6 and 8. Injury, he hit the car. He's jumping across the alley. I don't drive in their alley. I don't walk on their property. I would avoid their place. I always thought it was odd. He kept complaining in everything that I asked. They come out of their alley and they've got 3 ways to go. If I went and spoke to the HOA president, you see Tracy hop in her car, she goes and drives behind the house. My house, because all the properties have, it's like on the alleys in Olympia, all the alleys would connect, and it shows there in the plot map. We all share access to that alley. And I'm like, wow, if I back out of my garage, last thing I would want to do is back into one of these people crying bloody murder. I mean, so I was like, I don't understand if why they would be on my property. And previously, you know, my wife had almost got hit by him. We're not into the petty stuff. But he looked inside the fence holding the dog. And I'm like, my wife has plants. You're looking inside my fence as you're walking by. This was like 3 years ago. I don't want you near my fence. So, oh, I seen something. Now I find out now he had been trying to petition for my drive and acts as if I'm this forever. There's no statute of limitations. I'm the forever bad guy. And, you know, telling people I turned his water on, or, you know, he comes by the house. If he did call the cops, he'd come by the house. The cops are coming. They can't wait to get you. And he has a little bit of a lisp. So, of course, I'm not the perfect person, but let me tell you what, I am not harassing these people in any way. I'm going down to my spot. I'm turning right. I'm going in there, and I would never walk or drive down their alley. And then when I drive in other alleys, this has been my complaint in my neighborhood. The alley goes to your house for entrance to your garage. If you totaled out 2 cars in that alley, I would prefer he wasn't in my alley. So that's, you know, as far as not driving in their alley, if they wanted to pick a certain way to walk, and, you know, if I just stayed to my street and they walk the other, I'm willing to work with them, just because a GoPro would be the best thing, because I think I need forward cameras because they like to change what I hear.
Okay. All right, Mr. Harris, I think this is getting a little bit kind of off track here, and you're getting a little bit repetitive. So why don't you just sort of bring it to a conclusion?
I am at an end. I'm just saying that's how I think.
Okay.
Do I get to show the witness of the day that they said that I did all this?
Is that I can't open it right now. Is that the person who filed the declaration?
Yes,
the one
sir.
who was with you in I reviewed that. That's already in the record.
So I brought him here if you have any questions.
He doesn't have to, unless he's
just nothing's going on but the rent.
All right, Mr. Drury, you want to sum it up for the petitioners, and then I'll let Mr. Harris sum it up for himself.
Of course, Your Honor. I guess I'll just go with, are you asking for concluding statements or further testimony, Your Honor?
Concluding statements.
Thank you. This is not a matter about speed. I mean, certainly my clients are concerned about the level of speed that Mr. Harris seems to use coming down the roads there, but we're not here to try to enforce traffic laws. What they've described, and I find it incredible that now Mr. Harris is saying, well, now that he knows that they're in fear, he's known this for months and months and months. This is classical stalking behavior, classical harassing behavior, where he is going out of his way within the neighborhood, whether it's utilizing speed to put fear into my clients and coming up next to them when there's no need to do that, or pulling up and slowly pacing alongside of them in their vehicles. His answer to that is, well, it's not me, it's just them. They're doing these things, and I'm so surprised by all this. I'm a great guy. Well, he knows that's false. The police reports and the incident reports that my clients submitted verify that this and corroborate that this activity is going on, and he's been warned numerous times by both police, by previous actions, and he just will not stop. This type of activity doesn't have a lawful purpose. It's a course of conduct, and he's, for whatever reason, eerily focused on them, and he's just not going to stop. And they are really begging this court for an order to get this to stop.
All right, Mr. Harris, you want to sum it up from your side?
Well, just like I said, I found out just now over the years what they've been doing. I think it's petty, but at the same time, I didn't know it was to this level of this. I never spoke to the policeman. Policeman came down, said it was nothing criminal, and I wasn't there when he came down. I don't deserve an order because I'm not engaged. I'm just actually need an entrance to my property. And other times I've came in was just to get him to stop driving in my alley or filming me in the private property.
All right, thank you, Mr. Harris. All right, these neighborhood conflicts are kind of tough. Obviously you've lived together there in the same neighborhood for years. And when this hearing's over and everybody goes away, you're still going to be neighbors. You're still going to be living in the same neighborhood, just like you have been. I tell people all the time, I can't give you a good neighbor. There's nothing I can do to give you a good neighbor. That's between you. You're going to have to figure out a way to live together in the same neighborhood peacefully. So what I'm looking at, I'm applying the law here, not doing anything else. So harassment's a knowing and willful course of conduct directed at a specific person that seriously annoys, harasses, and is detrimental and would cause a reasonable person to suffer substantial emotional distress, and which actually causes substantial emotional distress and serves no legitimate or lawful purpose. Now, of course, even in such cases, the anti-harassment order can't be used to suppress somebody's constitutional right to free expression, and it's not a law that's designed to deal with people who are just rude, overbearing, or obnoxious. In our normal, average, everyday lives, all of us have to deal with difficult people who are obnoxious. That's just how society works. There has to be that much of a thick skin out there to be able to deal with the kind of people that you ordinarily run into. So what I've been considering this, and this isn't an easy case to decide. Because I have to be mindful of the fact that, Mr. Harris has got rights. He's going to be coming and going from that neighborhood. An anti-harassment order is not a mechanism to, like Mr. Drury said, to regulate how people drive. So no matter what happens here, you're still going to see Mr. Harris, and he's still going to see you. And you've got to figure out a way to deal with that. So in this instance, I've heard enough evidence between the testimony of the parties, the declarations that have been filed previously, and I'm aware of the allegations that have been made in the prior petition by Schreiber and Bouchard and the prior petition by Mr. Harris, which the court heard, I believe, last week. That does convince me by a preponderance of the evidence that harassment is going on here. I think that that's a fair way to characterize what's going on here. So as a result of that, I am going to issue an order, but again, as I said, there are significant limitations to what sort of thing the court can order. When people come into a situation like this, I think they frequently expect that the court can make the other person disappear from their lives. And I think that I know Mr. Drury is a very reasonable attorney, and I expect that he's managed expectations here, but I will issue an order that prohibits any contact or any stalking, but nothing about this order can prohibit or will prohibit Mr. Harris from using or accessing his own property.
And I want to say in our original order, we specified 150 feet because we were conscious of the neighborly relationship.
Am I able to drive down my own street from parked in front of my house to go to the alley
Yeah,
to turn
like I
in?
said, I'm not regulating the use of the streets out there. I understand the layout and geography out there, and as Ms. Schreiber said, it's a closed system.
Can I ask that they don't drive in my alley?
Not as part of this hearing. All right, this order will be in effect for 1 year from today's date, and I'll file that with the clerk now. And Mr. Harris, since you're here, you'll get a copy of it right now. Otherwise, Mr. Drury, I think you know how to access the documents from the court file.
After 12 months, does it get erased or what?
It doesn't, it's not in effect after 12 months. It just ends.
We need to avoid them, but I don't see how it's possible with today's date. But I appreciate your time. You have a good day.
You as well. Next, Deborah Rohrer. So these will be cases 24-427 and 428. Okay, Ms. Rohrer, go ahead.
When Mallory moved in, we kind of didn't get along. And then Roberts, said that my mailbox has gotten run over one day, and it hadn't. It was perfectly fine. He had just taken it down, and a couple of days later, he said he was going to put up a locking one, which I had no problem with. But until then, I put mine back up, and then he takes it back down, and he puts up a locking one, and he refuses to give me a key. Why? I don't know. I've been there 10 years. Mallory's there like 3 months. And so then after he put it up on October 12th, I didn't get any of my mail. And I have informed delivery, and they were telling me, like, I had a TransUnion credit report come because we were, me and my friend are looking for a mortgage. So they sent me one of them. I didn't get that. I didn't get any of my medical papers that came. And when I said to Robert, I said, well, can you ask Mallory where more of my mail is? And he just referred to it after that as missing mail. It's like, no, she's the only one on the property who has a key. So where's my mail?
Let me ask you a couple questions, okay? Just so I can clarify some things in my mind. First of all, is Mr. Rendazzo anything other than a neighbor?
He's my landlord.
Okay.
He owns the property.
Okay, understood. And then I may have more questions on that in a minute. In your petition, what you said is that he came onto your property, stole your home security camera, threatened to kill all your cats, and to smash a camera with a baseball bat. Okay, so I was expecting to hear something about that, not anything about a mailbox.
Well, it started with the mailbox, but then I got the security cameras because I started missing things. And so I caught them going through my yard twice on the cameras. And the second time he did it, he reached up and stole my security camera. He unhooked it and took it with him, and he left. There's a police report on that, and they eventually got it back for me. And that's, and he threatened me and all, as you read the text. And so I just got, nervous and scared, and especially when he put it that way, that threatened to come up, over with a baseball bat and smash my stuff and kill all my cats. And, and it's like, what the hell? Excuse my bad language, but, and it just kind of kept escalating from there.
And that's the text that you enclosed here as part of your case?
Yes, that was the last text he sent me. He did send me one other after the order was served. When my friend tried to serve him, or she served him, he kind of went ballistic and he got the excavator and he dug a trench behind her car where my guest parking is and trapped us all on there. He drug trees and rocks and stumps out into the driveway, so it was impassable. So we called the cops and they came and they served him again because I hadn't had time to file it. She had just handed it to him when he did this. And so, I mean, he's just intimidating and he's a lot bigger than me and he can be mean too. So I thought my best option would, have been to get a harassment order so I can get out of there.
Oh, okay. I guess that'll be my next question. What do you want an anti-harassment order to do?
I want him to leave me alone until and he's been told my friends to get off his property or he'd have their car towed and have them arrested. He's barricaded and where the parking is, so you can't even get anybody in there to help me move. You couldn't get a tow truck in there to pull my trailer out if you tried. He dug all that brush and trees and lined the driveway. He put up signs that says no trespassing and my name on it, and which I don't usually go over there unless I'm going to get one of my cats or something. But I mean, I've been there 10 years and he's, treating me like I'm some major thief running around his property. And I didn't steal, I've never stole anything from him.
All right. Is he evicting you?
Yes. I believe because of the theft, because I caught him on camera and turned him in. But I talked to a Northwest Justice Project and they have given me a lawyer. I'm supposed to meet him tomorrow. And she had called, and he turned off my water the same day that he was served. A few hours later, he turned off my water and he hasn't turned it on yet. She called him and left messages for him to turn the water back on. He has not turned it on. I'm surprised he hasn't turned off my power yet, honestly. But yeah, I just need him to stop me. I can't get anybody to come in there and help me because nobody wants to deal with, what's going on. And because he told all my friends, get off my property. It's my property, get off of it or I'll have you arrested and your car's towed. And I've been there 10 years. I got a lot of stuff there, and so.
What about Miss Kelly? How does she figure into this?
Well, she's been stealing my mail because unless the United States Post Office is wrong, they've been delivering it. I eventually had it held, and then I have a change of address going, just have it sent to a post office box.
Now, you said something about her shooting guns.
Occasionally, I'd hear a shot out, and then she'd say, "I just killed your cat." That's what I can hear somebody yelling from the back of the property, and she's on the back half, and
so let me ask you this, just so I know kind of the relationships. Is Miss Kelly also living on the same property?
Yes.
Okay.
There's 2 lots on the same 2.5 acres. She's on like the back half.
I got you. So just with you, I mean, in the same,
Another tenant.
the same land. Yeah, another tenant, the same. Yeah, good way to put it. Okay, I got you. All right. So, and you think she shot at your cats?
I don't think she shot at him, but that's what I'll hear, a shot and hear somebody yell, I just shot your cat. And then she lets her dog, she has like a 50-foot lead on her leash, and it'll lunge across the driveway and into the field after them. And, they're only little kittens. I mean, they're like a year old.
All right. Is there anything else you want me to know?
Well, after he was served and did the trench across the driveway and all that stuff, he was continually around put a little fence up around my trailers because of the coyotes. And once even a bear came through. But, the next 4 days after he was served, after the trench incident, he just constantly up against my fence line, just right there for 4 days and trying to be intimidating, and he blocked everything off. And I mean, I can't get anybody in there to help me. Nobody wants to deal with, this. And the tow truck companies don't want to come deal with, so I can't get them to come in to remove some of my cars. But So I'm gonna need a little more time. I mean, yeah, I'll pay next month's rent, but I'm gonna need a little bit more time to get out of there. Because I have to convince all my friends it's okay to come back and help me.
That's what you're gonna talk to the Northwest Justice Project people about.
Yeah, the eviction and the water turn off and everything.
All right, Ms. Rohr, anything else?
Not too much, no.
All right, I'm gonna hear from them and then I'll make a decision, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I will let you decide between yourselves who goes first.
Your Honor, I'd like to address every one of those issues.
Go ahead.
I'd like to first start by saying she's had a pattern of being dishonest for a very long time. She has had a pattern of trying to attack dogs, which has been documented with the Thurston County Sheriff's Department.
Where?
And
Now, hold on, Ms. Rohr, don't interrupt, all right? Don't do that. Just,
Okay.
I heard your side of it. I now get to hear their side of it.
Okay.
so what I'm starting to get at is that when I invited Mallory to live there, she has a dog. Now, Debbie hates dogs, vigorously hates dogs, and loves cats. She values cats more than human beings. Okay. When that happened, it started up a long series of events, which is I have suspected for some time that she's been coming on my property and I have a shop back there as well, that she's been taking my stuff. I've never accused her of that and could never prove it. I started marking items to try to prove it. I could not do it. When I noticed that the mail was missing from us even earlier than what she's talking about, I decided to put in a locking mailbox. I suggested to her that she also put in a locking mailbox. I have that in text. I told her I just want to simplify the problem. I wanted to keep things separate. Mail that goes to her, mail that goes to us, to us. She didn't like that. She just put up a bunch of fuss, and I have it all supported in text. I've had every text from her since 2018, and I can support everything I'm saying. Okay. As far as the excavating, I didn't buy an excavator to intimidate her. I've planned on clearing that land for quite some time. I have not crossed over her border into her fenced area since the order. I haven't spoken to her. And the time she's referring to that I contacted her is when I was doing screenshots on my phone of her text, and I accidentally sent a repeat of an old message. The sheriff's deputy came out and asked me about that. I told him exactly what happened. He said it was very reasonable to think that that happened. I didn't send her any new information. It was an old message that accidentally got resent while I was doing screenshots of her old texts. Okay. I've never threatened her. I've never, ever said I will remove her from her home physically. That's absurd. I do not deny saying I will kill her cats after a very long saga of her wanting to kill every dog that she's ever seen. Every neighbor that has dogs knows that she hates their dogs. She's jumped over my back fence to the clear back into the property and was intending to do harm to the neighbor's dog in a fenced area because they were barking at her cats. So this is a really long pattern, and Debbie is well known for switching everything that she's doing onto someone else. She claims everyone's spying on her, and no one's spying on her. She's got cameras out there. She walks around the property with night vision glasses on and in army fatigues looking around at stuff. It's completely absurd.
Well, she says in her petition that you took at least one of her cameras.
I'd like to address that. Yes. I asked her on multiple occasions not to have cameras pointing in the back area towards me. Now, as the landowner, I'm afforded that under RCW 9. Okay. I've asked her multiple times. She said she would turn them around. She did a few times. Then the cameras would keep coming back. This is before the protection order went in place. I went in there and removed the camera with no intention of stealing her camera. I wanted some privacy back there for myself and for my other tenant, because I feel for a long time she's been surveilling so she can see when people come and go, so that she can go back there and take things. We've had a lot of things go missing, and surprisingly, a lot of those very same things are in her yard. I did take the camera, and the camera went back to the deputy, and she's got them right back up where they were before, even though I've asked her on multiple occasions in person and through text not to have cameras pointing back in my direction. I told her at one point I didn't want any cameras on there because she's abusing her privilege to have cameras. They're not about security, they're about surveillance. She sets up lights pointing back, work lights and all kinds of lights to light up the whole area for who knows what reason.
Ms. Kelly?
Your Honor, along the same lines of the camera harassment, it's pointing right at my residence. I have the text stating she's been videotaping me and who comes and goes for months. I've asked her many times, I have all the texts asking her politely to remove those cameras. She's invading my privacy and she would not do so. As far as the guns, she, as Robert said, is out in the orchard, shooting her gun off. I think coyotes are chasing her cats in the middle of the night. I have the text of where she threatened to shoot my dog and kill it and do harm to Robert or myself. Even she talked about hiding bodies in septics because nobody would look for us there. And I just feel she's got some issues of I'm not sure what her stability is mentally, actually. So I feel she has miniguns. I know that. She does. So, but I didn't, and I do not have access to the locking mailbox. He has the key to it, so I've not stolen no mail. So but I just want to see this all resolved and just the better outcome for everybody. All these claims are just false. So.
All right, Ms. Rohr, stop that. I told you not to interrupt them.
Yeah, I'm
All
sorry.
right, that's not how court works.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I just can't believe it.
All right.
We are working to get this realigned, hopefully, so we can get it all reavers on some of this stuff so it can be addressed. So we were going to ask for an extension on this, but if as it is, we're discussing it all right now, so maybe we can resolve it.
Okay.
So, thank you so far.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll be honest, I've got a difficult time believing some of these accusations. But on the other hand, Mr. Randazzo, you don't have the right to take her cameras. I don't know why you think you do, but you don't. So, if you go and enter the property and take the cameras, you're running the risk of creating problems for yourself. That kind of thing can give a tenant a basis to take action against their landlord. Now I've got some limitations here because, really I can't issue an order against a landlord that says he can't enter on the property. That's not allowed in district court or in an anti-harassment order type case. But I don't think I'm really going to have to resolve that part because I just don't find credible allegations here. There's obviously tension. It sounds like all three of you people are maybe, distinct personalities and, you don't get along, which, happens in life. That's normal stuff. But, maybe it's cats and dogs are incompatible. I don't know, but clearly there's conflict here. But I will say, Ms. Rohr, the real way to handle your business conflict with Mr. Randazzo as your landlord is the way you're doing it, which is to talk to the Northwest Justice Project people. Your rights as a tenant are, they are not being diminished in any way by these proceedings. I can't do anything regarding your rights as a tenant or his rights as a landlord as part of this hearing. So I'm just focusing on the allegations of harassment that you brought. But based on the total evidence here, I just don't find that there's harassment. I think it's more appropriate for you to resolve your, as I would say, your business dispute, your dispute that's related to your landlord-tenant relationship in the context of your discussions with your Northwest Justice Project attorney. But on the evidence that I've got here in front of me today, I'm not issuing an order against either Ms. Kelly or Mr. Randazzo.
I'd like to know one thing though, is what have I stolen from you?
No.
That's what I'd like to know.
Okay, let's save those discussions for later, okay? Right now, the hearing's been held. I've heard
Okay.
everything everyone has to say. If you want to have further discussions between yourselves, do that after you've left the courtroom.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my God.
You have got to be kidding me. What is going on today? This is a joke. This is a joke. Today is an absolute joke. We need an interpreter.
I need an interpreter when I cannot express myself sometimes.
Oh my God, sir, put that cigarette out. I don't give a crap that you are outside of this. What is wrong with everybody today? You know what, Miss Reed, we're going to start bringing people in front. People going to learn how to act in a courtroom.
Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Ma'am? Ma'am? Can you hear it?
No.
Okay.
I have no patience for that. At the end of the day, I'm sitting up here, I'm the one that needs a drink.